Namaskaram. Hello all. On behalf of Sri Guru Kripa, I have great pleasure in presenting this interview and discussion on the legendary Mahavidwan Sri D Ramanathan on the occasion of his birth centenary this year. I have with me none other than his son, Sri Balaji Ramanathan. Balaji is my schoolmate and a very good friend of mine for nearly 4 decades now. Balaji is a very ardent rasika of his father's music, and he strives to preserve MDR's legacy. We have grown up listening to MDR's music since school days, and it is a privilege to have him here. Balaji works as an executive for FedEx in Memphis, and he's a good vocalist himself. Having learned from Vidwan Sri T.V. Gopalakrishnan and also Vidwan Sri K.V. Narayanaswamy, whose centenary is also being celebrated this year. As we all know, MDR is a multifaceted personality, a genius, as a composer, as a performing musician, and as a trailblazer in the field of Carnatic music. There is a lot to talk about his music, and that itself lends to a research. So a 30-minute or a 1-hour discussion is going to be insufficient to elaborate on all of that. Anyways, I'm really glad to have Balaji here to share some of his observations on MDR, the man, and his music. So welcome, Balaji.
Thank you, Shankar. It's definitely an honor and privilege to have this conversation with you. And as you rightly mentioned, to cover anything about Appa within a span of 30 minutes or an hour is going to be it's going to be difficult. And more importantly, I want to have this disclaimer that I'm not at all qualified to to give any opinion or any remarks about his musical abilities and his greatness. Right? It is a journey for me. It's a blessing as well, which I am realizing at every step of my life. And I'm really looking forward to having this conversation with you. As you rightly mentioned, our friendship dates back to many years ago. And I'm really thankful for you to take this opportunity and have this conversation with me.
Yeah, thank you, Balaji. No, but I think it's really good to have that perspective as somebody who has seen him and grown with him, and so we would like to definitely hear all of that, like both from recollections, your own recollections, and from your mother, and based on what work you've been doing in trying to keep up this legacy here. So tell me about your interactions with MDR as a child. How was it growing up, and what are your recollections?
So first and foremost, it is definitely my Purva Janma Punyam of many births that I had the unique blessing to have had this birth in this family, right? I was barely 11 when he passed away. So my earliest recollections are in the last few years of his life, right? Attending concerts in Chennai and traveling to other parts of India, traveling with him and having interactions with his students, many musicians, many reputed musicians, even though it was a passive observations many times. I definitely cherish those memories. And of course, during the last few years of his life, he also was battling many health issues, right? So my first 11 years of life, I would consider especially the last 5 to 6 years as where I have, very strong memories of having interacted with him. Appa used to read a lot. He had a wide collection of books at home, and he used to actually spend time reading books, and he used to interact with many musicians. When they visit our house, they used to have very long discussions. Right? It definitely used to be music related, as well as there could be other topics. He was a very as a person, many know this. He had a very good sense of humor. He was very lively when he had these conversations. So there used to be many visitors who used to come home. So those are some of the recollections that I have. I used to go with him for walks, morning walks to the Theosophical Society. As you know, as you've been to our house many times, we used to live near Theosophical Society campus in Adyar. So we used to go for walks with him. And I definitely knew that he was a celebrity because I was able to witness and experience the attention that we as a family were getting everywhere, and just also reading his name in the newspapers or hearing his music in the radio. Those are things that doesn't happen for all, right? It is something that so I was old enough to realize that he was a celebrity, but even not too old enough now to comprehend his greatness, right? Accessibility doesn't imply comprehension. So
You truly wish that he lived longer to for you to have kind of like have more experiences and all of that. And speaking of all, like you're telling about all these interactions and Sri MDR has had like friends and well-wishers and connoisseurs from all over the field of Carnatic music, and like all legendary Vidwans have a great respect for him and his music, and his co-artists and all the performers. So how was that like? Like, do you have recollections of people who used to come to your house, or what was his relationship? Like, how was that? Like, how did he interact from whatever little that you could remember or recollect?
sure, yeah. There was many musicians like Lalgudi Mama or T.N. Krishan Mama used to visit our house. And for me, I was, again, as I mentioned, right, I was so close in the sense that I used to consider them as like a Peripa or a Chittappa, right? So they used to come, they were very friendly. Of course, TVG Mama used to come quite often to our house. And I used to have the liberty to, in fact, I've traveled with them also. Like, for example, if we go to any concerts in Kerala, used to have, it used to be the first class compartment, right? It used to be a separate compartment, and not a compartment, but a block where you can stay with one more family. So T.N. Krishan Mama and we have traveled. So Andamari experiences I have those memories.
How would he interact with them, and like, so was it the discussion about music or a lot of other things? And
There used to be other, I would hear, again, I was too young to look into the conversation that they had or comprehend what exactly they discussed, but there used to be a lot of laughter. I remember that there used to be uh, a lot of laughter, and Appa was known to have, he used to have like very as I said, very humorous, and have like one statement which will have like a couple of meanings, right? Those kind of things used to be there. So it
they all had
definitely.
a tremendous respect for his music, and I know that TVG sir or KVN sir and everybody, or Umiyapuram Shivaram Mama, and all of them had this respect and admiration for his music on and off stage. And I think even legendary Palakat Maniyar was also, a very, very good family friend, and, of your things. Do you have recollections of that? Like,
So again, my recollections are mostly with, I haven't had the fortune to meet Palakat Maniyar, the legendary Palakat Maniyar, but I have, again, as I said, Umayal Param Shivaraman Mama or Rambhadran Mama or Palakat Prabhu sir, and as I said, KVN Mama, and all these musicians, they used to have interactions with Appa. There used to be phone calls, and of course, TVG sir he lived very close to our house. So he used to frequently visit our house as well. So they used to have these conversations. They, as you said, they had a very good camaraderie amongst themselves. And I And if you look at his career too, right, most of these musicians have accompanied him a lot.
Yes.
So I've had the opportunity to sit on the stage as well. So I used to, even during concerts, there used to be
Didn't
this.
TVG sir have like a special MDR Mridangam for him? Right.
Both, yeah, I think because of his Shruti, right? Even Shivaraman Mama also had a specific mridangam that was custom made for Appa's concerts,
Yes.
right? And same thing with TVG sir. TVG sir actually has showed it to me also. He actually kept that mridangam even after Appa's demise for many years.
I'm
As
not sure many could sing at that,
Correct. It used to be if I remember, it used to
And
be a
actually,
black.
now that you mention about the Shruti, like this is something that my guru has also said, PSN Mama also, like he could sing at any pitch. He could sing at a much higher pitch and act, he's heard him sing at higher pitches at home and things like that. And, so it is his ability, but I think he found the right kind of pitch that would deliver the kind of music that he wanted to, is what my understanding is, right?
Absolutely, that's what I've heard from some of my relatives in my house. They mentioned that earlier in his childhood, Appa used to sing at a very fast pace, at a higher pitch, right? Then I think over a period of time, he was well aware of his, the power of his voice. Because again, this I have heard from some of the associates in Kalakshetra, like when they used to be Western musicians who used to visit Kalakshetra, right? They used to have interactions on the amount of bass that you can get from cello, or that is, so at that time, Appa used to even demonstrate the power of his voice. So I think he leveraged his voice power.
Exactly.
And
Get the best
definitely
of what he wanted in, like, because that is, like he's trying to interpret the kritis and his music, the ragas, in a particular way. And I think it was a very conscious effort, like for him, like to harness that and do it the best possible way. And I think that is something that is amazing.
true.
And
Shankar,
that leads me to this, yeah.
Just want to add one point. It's interesting that you mentioned interpret, right? Because in one of the interviews, he does mention that rendering is different than interpretation,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
So for him, everything was it was not, it was not a product in the end. It was a process, right? It was entirely a process, right from learning. And his focus, he mentions about Kavi Hridaya, right? To be able to get to the objective of the kriti, the context and the content, right? So he mentions this, and it's interesting you mentioned interpretation. So I just wanted to add that.
I mean, he is a very meticulous musician, and I think that this is all part of that. Now, I just that leads me to you mentioning Kalakshetra, and I think that is a very important chapter in his life. And um, so he's had a very long association with Kalakshetra, very fruitful association. So when did he? So tell me a little bit about his early life in Kerala, and like how he came to Chennai, and the things that you've heard.
So basically, family is a musical family, right? My grandfather is Sri Devesha Bhagavatar, who himself was a violinist, and his brother and his ancestors were also, like, they were Vainikas and musicians in the family. So he was born to Sri Devesha Bhagavatar and Srimati Sita Lakshmi Ammal, right? And right from childhood, he was in a very musical environment. He started learning from his father and his uncles as well. And then he did, even though the family was not, especially when I say family, my grandfather was not actually keen on him pursuing a musical career, because you as a musician, this better, right? There's a lot of uncertainties, and so that is why they wanted a much more stable and a secure career for their son. And Appa did enroll and graduate in BSc Physics in Victoria College in Palghat. And I'm not sure how many science graduates are there in that era. Like,
I think that is a very, very important point, both from, like how he approached his music and his personality in center, because you mentioned that like at that era, it is extremely rare to have a very well qualified, because a graduate in those eras like is something like unheard of. And that being said, he's a science graduate, and he could have gone to any kind of jobs that he wanted at that point of time in British era and things like that. So, but he chose music, right? Like,
yeah. So it was 1944, 1941 to 44. He graduated. He did his BSc in physics, and then in 1944 is when Kalakshetra, I think, was formally launched, and they had this very first. They had launched a program called Sangeeta Shironmani, and there was a notice or an ad that he happened to see in Palghat, and that is where it was mentioned that Srimati Rukmini Devi Arundel is opening this institution. And of course, the name Sri Tiger Varadacharya was something that that drew his attention. From what I've heard in the interviews, he has not heard any live concerts of Sri Tiger Varadacharya earlier. I don't think so, but he has heard from many musicians, right? As that Palghat, that areas had a lot of musical in the air, right? There's a lot of musicians from that location, and so they kind of know that he was a giant. He was he was a musician, was one of the most renowned scholars. So that definitely caught his attention. So it's 1944 he came to Kalakshetra, right? So he was the very first student of the Sangeeta Shironmani program in Kalakshetra. So that is when the journey started. And Appa was, again, that Guru Shishya is Bandham is very, very special.
For the sake of listeners, I mean, like,
yes,
you and I know, most of us know about his composition, and his mudra was Varadadasa, which is after his guru, right?
Yes.
So his Guru Bhakti is something that is, you can elaborate, you can tell us.
Absolutely. So it had, from the interviews that I've heard, and also I have personally experienced this. Like, for example, my Sharma is actually Shankara Varada Deva, right? Varada is that is the middle name actually for me, if you look at it. So for him, Guru was everything. So 1944 is when he came to Kalakshetra, and in fact, in one of the interviews, he says that during the application process, he was asked to sing, and he sang in front of, I think the doyens were there, Rukmini Devi Arundel and Tiger Varadacharya. They were all sitting there, and Tiger Tata also, when he heard Appa for the first time, apparently he had said, Amma nalla kolanda vandirukku appdi. That's what he mentioned. So there was this kind of a parental bondage that they developed, and it is something that everybody knows, right? So much so that, in fact, few additional points that I want to share here, not many would know, is that he actually, in his marriage invitation, right, he first mentions a disciple of Tiger Varadacharya, and then only his parents' names are featured there. So
amazing that how much that influence, not just influence, that looks like a genuine Guru Bhakti that he had. And that is something that all students of music like us, like we should imbibe that. And
I just want to share one more observation. Again, this is an observation, right? So most of the felicitation speeches that he has given, or any interviews that he has given, right, the conversation always gravitates towards his guru, right? Up until that point, he talks about himself, but that's the moment it moves to his guru, then he's completely lost. That influence is almost it's he was a big he was a big fan of Swami Vivekananda, so he kind of envisioned that relationship between
So at the
Vivekananda and
same
Paramahansa.
point, we have to emphasize like how he charted his own path too. Like he had that Guru Bhakti and he imbibed all those things. Like we can go a little bit into the music part of it and all, but I think it's also important like how he created his own style, which is taking all the good aspects of Tiger's learning and several other sources and then trying to create him. So I think that was also like his thing.
Absolutely. I think he, even in the Indian Fine Arts, when he was conferred the Sangeeta Kalashikamani award, I think it is Sangeeta Kalashikamani, if I'm right, or Sangeeta Kala Nipuna. I'm sorry if I'm not telling the right one, but
Indian finance is Sangeeta Kala Shikamani. Yeah.
Shikamani, right? So in that speech also, he says that if at all there is any appreciation for my music, it is because it is the tiger's lens. You're approaching my music because of the tiger's lens, right? So that he anchored his identity, his musical journey, everything around his guru, right? Even as I mentioned earlier, we used to go for walks in Theosophical Society, and I don't know if many know, Kalakshetra's original campus was in Theosophical Society. So as you enter, yeah, go ahead, Shankar. Yeah.
No, I was going to say that how long was his association with Kalakshetra?
His association with Kalakshetra started in 1944 and continued till his demise, till 1984.
It's an integral part of his entire music career, and that's where he lived. He ended up living in, so where your family still lives, your mother still lives there. So I think so that the Kalakshetra is a big part of his journey there, right? So
absolutely, yes. Again, as you said, not only the guru, but he had immense affection and respect with Srimati Rukmini Devi Arundel. He used to address her as Rukmini Amma, right? If I'm not sure if many would know, but Kalakshetra, they used to address her as Attai, right? But he always used to address her as Rukmini Amma, and I used to address her as Pati, right? Because she used to often visit our house. And I, again, as I said, I didn't know.
Kalakshetra, like for a long time after, dance like Vasudevachar and Tiger and Papnashan and everything, for a long time after that, I think MDR was, as far as music department goes, he was a big pillar for Kalakshetra.
Yes. So his 44, he joined there as a student, and it was I think 2-year or 3-year program when he finished his diploma and Sangeeta Shironmani, and he joined there as a faculty, right? That is when he started, and he was a faculty, as you mentioned, right? Karakudi Sambashivayar, Mysore Vasudevacharya, Papnasham Shivan, I mean, all legendary, musicians there. And Tiger Vardacharya he passed away in 1950. So it is 1944 to 50 is when those 6 years, but those 6 years, again, as I said, 24/7, I think Appa was fully plugged in with his guru, right? He used to mention this, it is observe and absorb, right? So if you, again, Tiger Vardacharya, and based on what I have read and what Appa has shared in interviews, never had a very structured way of teaching or sharing his musical. It was totally, it was a free flow of ideas and music concepts that might go from one ragam to the other, one kriti to the other. It was that kind of a flow used to come, but Appa used to be always attuned, and he, in fact, it seems Tiger Tata used to refer to him as Tiridan Tiridan. So what happened was, Sri Rukmini Devi Arundel was, she was witness to this beautiful relationship that happened between Guru and Sishya, and she was also very much, concerned or, very close to Appa, making sure that his musical career also blossoms well, right? So he was under that care of Srimati Rukmini Devi Arundel and Sri Shankara Menon. And that's kind of how the journey with Kalakshetra continued, right? For so many years, he joined there as a student, then he became a faculty, then a principal, and that's how it continued.
Yeah, and it has been an integral part for those collaborations have really helped him, and the institution to enrich them. And I think, and you mentioned Tiger because although all of that, whatever that he imbibed, like if you listen to, there are very few recordings that are available of the Doyen Tiger Varadacharya. But if you listen to, like, let's say Korina Varamu or something, that is very different from what MDR presented because that is his style and he imbibed that and he did that. So he did not really just go ahead and say that I'm going to copy exactly what my guru did and everything like that. He chartered his own path, which is really good. Yeah. So I think so. The question is like, so this is a difficult era. Like it is not like now, like 50s and 60s, and that period was difficult for somebody who wants to take up a career as a musician. And and I'm sure that he did that out of passion, but it was not an easy path at that time to choose, right?
True. Based on what Amma has shared, again, as I said, right, he was his guru passed away in 50 and 1950 onwards. He ensured that he will remain in Chennai because he had this profession at Kalakshetra to be there as a professor, but then to get an identity in the music world, right? I mean, that era, if you look at 50s, you had all the great doyens of, that era had all this, the great Aryakudi Raman Jayangar to, G.N. Balasubramaniam.
They were still singing, yes, Aryakudi Raman.
Exactly.
Madramani, Alathur. So all that is happening in one side, and then he breaks out, right? Like
exactly.
That era where, as you said, like all these people are like really established stars on one side, like with legendary people there, and then here comes this young man with music and everything. Like, so how did he break out? Like, what? That's an interesting story by itself, right?
So from what I've heard, he actually started performing in many chamber concerts initially, right? I think what I've heard is his music had a lot of respect, even though, because he was chartering on a different path altogether. So they had, and of course, he had this illustrious guru, because when you had a question, Shankar, you raised your hand. You're on mute, sorry.
No, go ahead. To that.
Oh, okay. Yes. So he basically, he had because I have seen in some places where he had performed in chamber concerts in early 1950s and all that. But again, even though he had that, there was a small period in his life where Amma has shared with me that whether he had his own doubts, whether his music is the right, because if I need to take music as my profession, is that sustainable or not? He had a little, that anxiety, which I'm sure many musicians and artists would go through such phases, right?
Especially more so given his formal education and his ability to have, chosen something else if he wanted to.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he had options. In fact, my family has told me that he actually had a central government offer, after his graduation, right? I was told that he had an option to go there, but he chose this path.
Music chose the other way, we have to say.
Exactly. Music chose him, and especially the guru actually enlightened that entire musical vision for him, right? So mid-50s onwards, I'm often told that there was a concert in Music Academy, which I think the legendary Mahalingam was to play flute, and that got cancelled. And it's an interesting story where Amma has shared with me that Amma, Appa, and my mama, who visited our house that time, they were actually planning to go to a Kathakali concert, to see Kathak. It was music season, right? So they were planning to go, and then you have the secretary from the academy, and the legendary T.N. Krishnan and Palghat Mani are coming to our house and telling that இன்னைக்கு night கச்சேரி நீங்க தான் பண்ண போறீங்க, அது கேன்சல் ஆயிடுத்து, நீங்க பாடணும் சொல்லி அப்பாட்ட they told. And in fact, that concert was broadcast on the radio. They used to have this radio broadcast of live broadcasts of academy concerts, which I'm sure happens even today. So that concert was kind of an overnight success. So then what happened? Then immediately, he started getting, other, invitations to perform in many places, and that kind of, I can see that from late 50s onwards, he started.
It's very interesting that Sri MDR himself has documented all those things very meticulously. I have seen that in your house, right? Like all his progress through all these, little memorabilia of all these little concerts and reviews and everything that he had treasured, and he very nicely, how should I say, documented them and have them. And one of them, actually, I remember seeing that somebody, I think it is one of those top critics, I don't know if it is SVK at the time or Subudu or whoever it is, would say like the breakout star for this season is MDR. And he, like among all these people, like you have all these giants who are performing there, and here we have this young man who's, who's the next big star and everything like that. And so there is a review of that particular concert. So I think so. Yeah.
So I mean, you mentioned about his documentation, right? So even in his chemistry and physics record books, right, it was so meticulously maintained, and he has written about music also. So it looks like even during his academic, he had this deep passion for music, and very meticulously planned. Again, as I said earlier, it is the process and the journey. He was very much involved in that process and journey, and that outcome was just a part of it, was a byproduct. So it was not like he was preparing himself for a specific product or an output. Rather, he was very much conscious, every time, that musical awareness and consciousness was always there. Because I look at his notebooks, there is mention about music, there is mention about, he has very clearly documented, all the the sahityams that he learned. Natakurinji, for example, Buddham Ashrayami, everything is written there. The sahityam is written, and it's all there, and he preserved it so carefully, right? So
yeah, I think that is a great thing, like that the formal education that he had, and like as you said, like he's a science graduate, and so he he's used to documenting all these things. So that also goes with music, like to document his songs and the notations and everything else, and that kind of a scientific approach to his music. I mean, we think of Sri MDR as a very spontaneous. He's a very spontaneous musician. We know that. But there is also a lot of seriousness of purpose that goes into his music. Like it is not a very casual thing. Like he's not just going to go there on stage and sing today whatever that comes to his mind. It is because he's been thinking about it for a while, right? Right?
Yeah, true, very true. And also I want to add one more point here, Shankar, that even when I look at his notebooks, I don't know whether it was part of the academic syllabus in Kalakshetra. He has written notes about Western music as well, the voice culture, and it's all handwritten, right? So I think he was not constrained within one system of music, even though he had this, of course, his ability to to know multiple languages also emerged around that time, right? So he was very curious, inquisitive, and again, I'm sharing all this based on what I have observed, right? So that preparation has gone, in his format.
I think at some point of time, all those things, it would be nice to bring that out either in in a web format or some other format. I know that you're working on a lot of things. I'll come to that. So again, so his, there are numerous concerts that are there. Like I know that when I was growing up, like we had access to some of his tapes, and I know that you had plenty of them, and I have listened to them. And so back then we just had these small cassettes and recordings, and it was not easy to get hold of good recordings or good music. But after his, after he passed away, and over the decades, now there are plenty of real good concerts and good music of his that has come out, and we are able to listen to a lot of that. And I should say that his fame has, has, I should say, his people's appreciation of music has grown over the time after his passing away more than what it was during his time, right?
Again, I'm very thankful to all those people who recorded his music, right? It baffles me that in early 60s, when you did not have access to all those devices, and especially Appa was not keen on his concerts being recorded, right? We didn't have a tape recorder at home until his demise. We had one radio, and that radio also he had because it used to be called Risa. That was it had a swaram this thing, so that is why he bought that radio. So he was not for his music being recorded, but fortunately, without his not, I have personally witnessed when I sit on the stage. I have seen people have this small tape recorder, and they used to have the cassette through which they
I think a
recorded.
lot of people from the Western world came and recorded some of his music too, and right,
It happened.
like
So
Kalakshetra and other places, and yeah.
yes. So basically, what happened was, again, as I said, they started recording his music, and of course, more in the 70s. I think there were more such recordings, and we are so grateful to Dr. Amy Caitlin from and Dr. Fred Lieberman from University of California at Berkeley. So they actually they came and they recorded his concert. It's available in YouTube today. It's available, as well as they also recorded a personal, at home, basically, having an interview with him. That was also recorded.
Video
So
interview.
Sorry?
There's a video interview, right?
There's a video interview. Yeah, it is available in YouTube. I have uploaded that. So again, all this happened much, it evolved. And I am personally thankful to all those recordings which started perhaps from mid 60s, right? So today, if you look at it, I believe there is close to, I would say, around 200 to 250 concerts that are available. And, there are some very passionate devotees of Appa, I would call them.
I know that because during the school days, and it was a big challenge for you to even get some of his recordings. Like, I mean, you had some of the record. I mean, like there are like few tapes here and there, but it was a big challenge. But having come a long way to be able to gather all of that.
That democratization happened much later, I would say, in
social media and everything.
mid 90s or early 2000s is when that music actually started coming out, right? I remember, as I said, we didn't have the very first tape recorder that came into our house was after his demise, because again, Appa's very close family friends, they felt that, okay, his music should always be in this house, and we were completely devastated. So that was when the cassette and the recorder came into our house. And then slowly we started collecting, and there are so many Rasikas, like for example, Prince Ramavarma is someone who has been visiting our house for so many years, and he used to share some tapes. He used to give some tapes.
That you mentioned that, like he had a unique connection with the royal family of Travancore. Like two people who are really were held in very great esteem is, like, of course, Sri MDR and Sri Shamagadi Srinivasa Iyer. So I think that connection goes a long way. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, again, Appa has performed for many years at the Navratri Mandapam. I don't know when it
Asthana
started.
Vidwan, so there was always, like, as long as he was there, that he would
He,
always perform there.
exactly. So almost like I remember at least for 3 or 4 Navratris, we never used to be at Chennai. We used to go to Trivandrum, and then from there he used to have a few other concerts as well. Of course, that ambience is so unique. It's divine. We've had the privilege to.
Absolutely. I mean, like, I've accompanied my guru. That's a very, very, very divine, and also, like, it's in that era and things like that. Like, most of the temples there in and around Kerala are like that, and so I think it is a.
Yeah, and to some extent that association still continues, right? Because uh, uh, Prince Ramavarma used to come to our house. I'm sharing this late 80s onwards, right? He used to
I
come
have
often,
seen it.
and in fact, Her Highness the Maharani has visited our house when Appa was not feeling well. She came to our house to personally inquire on Appa. So that is something I will remember. It was a special moment, despite the
I
circumstances.
think
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of number of rare Swati Tirunal kritis that he used to sing so well. I can recollect so many of them, like Jalajanaba and Kedara Gauda, so many. And I just want to lead into the music part of it. Like, I cannot, because we're talking a little bit about Swati Tirunal and everything like that. I mean, he has, as a concert artist, he has put his stamp on several kritis. Like, he had his, like, those kritis would have been sung by many people, yes, but he had left his mark on them because of the way he approached and how unique he used to make those. I mean, I have to say, I have to talk about Bhavaya Nidhi. I don't think that this is going to be incomplete without of that. So he really made it in a way that, of course.
Adigore Shurpanaka Watanagat Karayaro Adigore Shurpanaka Watanagat Karayaro Adigore Shurpanaka Watanagat Karayaro Adigore
Shimangri Mama was, behind all of that, but his interpretation of that song was really, something that most people would instantaneously recall. So, have you listened to him sing, like, at home or?
See, at home, he used to offer a kriti as part of his prayers, right? So again, and TBG Mama has mentioned this on a couple of occasions, right? Appa was traditional. At the same time, I wouldn't say he was too ritualistic. He was. He had this personal connection with divinity. So when he offered a kriti, right? For example, he used to sing often Mama Pattabhirama at home. I've heard that. And in fact, some of as I said, whether it is his friends or if others
You'd
musicians, they used
start
to
with
wait outside.
Anupallavi and then go and sing that, yes.
Correct. So he used to offer that at home. But for concerts, again, I have not seen him, go through the entire, the concert list or anything at home. He used to be in a very contemplative mood, on the day of the concert. And there used to be, like, especially for me, I used to have very specific instructions because, he wanted that ambience, right? He wanted a very serene and, peaceful mood. He used to contemplate on what he's going to offer in that concert that day. And then, of course, once he gets to I'm sure he must have had some plan as to what he's going to offer. And most of his concerts, if you see Shankar, I think mostly it starts with a Varnam, and then he proceeds. There are very few concerts where he started directly with a Kriti, right?
Yes.
And that's
yeah. So I think that, Varnams, even in Varnams, I think he could leave his stamp. Like I'll take Narayana Gaula Varnam, for example. I can go on and on about that, because when he starts out, the first one bit of that phrase, the entire Narayana Gaula comes out of that. And then that Varnam was like, nobody can sing it so beautifully. I mean, in fact, I think many people have talked about this. Like he used to bring the Raga Bhava in that Varnam. So whatever Varnam he chose, like whether it is Narayana Gaula Varnam or like Kambo, the Varnams, or all those things are so beautiful. Like, so it started with a very traditional thing, but then he would leave about, I mean, we've heard very good renditions of very bony Bairami Varnam, right? Like, and he used to do some unique things in that.
Again, that is where even I had one, I don't have a recording of this, but I've heard from one of his disciples that in a concert, if you hear this, the big clocks tune, right? The Big Ben clock, yeah. Whatever, it goes like ta, 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 ta.
That's a chime, yeah.
That's a chime, right? Apparently, he started with that in a concert, and then he actually moved into Mohanam. Then ta, 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 ta. That's how he started. He went into Ninukori, and he said everybody was completely. I'm sure that experience might something that nobody would have expected, right?
Yeah, I mean, so some of those, like, really, I mean, like any kritis. So what are, like, in your, like, I mean, you've got this numerous recordings and everything like that. Any particular, renditions of certain kritis, like, are very different from what you've heard, what we are contemporaneously hearing. Like his approach to those kritis will be very different, right?
Again, yeah. So for me, right, as I said, I'm not at all qualified to talk about his music, but as a Rasika, right? And I've had the unique, opportunity and blessing to hear him sing at home as well, and hear concerts, and more so later through recorded music, right? So my journey as a listener has evolved, where I personally, like, for example, few renditions of Kedaram, right? There is one rendition where he sings Ananda Natara Prakasham. It's Chalakudi Narayana Swami and SVS Narayanan. That concert, he starts with Vanajakshi Varnam and then goes to Ananda Natara Prakasham. He sings for almost 45 minutes. And
45 minutes, imagine, and then the depth and the breadth of that Kedaram.
I mean, what I felt is, I did not have, I still don't have the ability to comprehend the music. And
45 minutes, imagine, and then the depth and the breadth of that Kedar.
I mean, what I felt is, I did not have, I still don't have the ability to comprehend the musical side of it, but as a spiritually, it takes me to a point that there is nothing more in life than this. It is something, it pretty much takes you entirely, right? I can give few renditions like that. There is also a Saraguna Palimpo that he sang in Academy. It was, I think, apparently it was a morning concert. And for that, I remember the accompanists are V. Tyagarajan and Velu Ramabhadran. And in fact, one of our family friends who was there in that concert told me that after that concert, MS Amma actually came towards the stage to compliment Appa, because that Saraguna Palimpa is again, that rendition is something that I cannot take it away from my head. That kind of a permanent mark it leaves.
Kedaragaula, Yedukula Gamboji, Kedaragaula, Begada, Sriragam, Natakuram. Those are all his forte, right? Like those ragas there. But not only that, like, so we think about all this elaborate grand presentations, but he also used to have these little fast moving numbers, right? In the Kritis, he used to sing that, right? Like I've heard a Triloka Mata in Paras. Very fast, but very catchy. I that stays in my mind too. I have heard that. So there are a lot of Kritis like that, right?
Yeah. In fact, Birana Brovaiti in Kalyani, which apparently everybody sings as the main piece, he takes it as a fast number, and it's there in the video concert also. People can, everybody can listen to it. So he questioned us. Similarly, on the other hand, Niravati Sukada, he sings. Then Navarasa Kannada also, he sings very slow. Ninnuvina Namadalli, he sang it very slow.
In a very, relaxed pace. Yeah.
Yes. I think he had this. Inquisitive this thing as to why it should be done. He actually questioned some of the I wouldn't conventional practices that were out there, and he had a reasoning behind those questioning, right? I think it was, the amount of awareness that is available today was perhaps not there at his time, right? So that could be, that could be one of the reasons. But he never, he had his identity, and he said, okay, this is how I'm going to, position my music. This is how it is going to be presented. I am personally convinced. I am fully convinced about it. So that conviction was there in how he presented, right? So that is why when we observe all this, which kind of, I'm sure in 1960 or 70 when this was rendered, and as you can see from some of the articles, people are questioning, how can you do this, right? There are some instances like that, but he never stopped from that. exceptions were always there, but he never
There was
stopped.
this beautiful article again, like from what he had said, like, it says that this is something that I had seen from your house only. Like, it's a glowing review of his concert at the academy, and then they say that like a few years back, we have had like people who are visiting and they were questioning and they were, they were not comfortable with this kind of music. But today, the very same people are all coming and thronging to his music, and they are, appreciating this, and they are able to, connect with this kind of music. So that is the kind of thing that he brought. He brought people to listen to his music, and he had a wide following. And he was alive, and there were people who were fanatics and who were, who used to throng for his concerts and would listen to that. But still, it is a musician's musician. It's not like something that is instantaneously like everybody could, everybody could connect to it. But it's a deep understanding that one needs to have.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning about Kedaram, is that one of his like favorite ragams, because we've heard Tyagaraja Gurum, because the great composition on Tyagaraja was composed in Kedar, right?
Yeah.
And your son's name is Kedar. Is that
Yes.
because of?
Of course, yeah. Son's name is Kedar and daughter's name is Sahana. And again, Sahana also, Riti Gaulai, Sahana, Kedaram, even Karahara Priya. I've heard one rendition of Karahara Priya, just that Alapna is only for 6-7 minutes, but it pretty much locks you, right? It locks you with that, it imprints that identity of Karahara Priya in such a way that, wherever I go, whatever different rendition I hear, I get back to this 7 minutes of Karahara Priya, right? That's the kind of the power of his music that I am experiencing over many years. But to your point, you mentioned about a musician. So what I've heard is that even when he was during his younger days and subsequently all these senior musicians, many have told him to, don't get distracted, maintain your identity. Your path is so unique. All legendary musicians like G.N. Balasubramaniam, Madhuramani, Ramanathapuram, Muruga Bhupati. There are specific instances where I've heard from them saying that you have taken a very difficult path, but this is a very special path. And in fact, I remember in the last season, Shri Neveli Santana Gopalan actually made a reference, after that Legdem. There was a Legdem in Academy. Apparently, the great flute Mali mentioned that he was listening to Appa's concert, and apparently they mentioned that after the concert was over, the secretary or somebody said, today he's one of the top amongst junior musicians or something. This must have happened, 50s or early 60s. Apparently, the legendary Mali had said that amongst any musicians, he's among the top. He's not just junior, but he's top amongst all musicians. So that's the
That is the
adoration and
kind of
respect.
regard that most people, had for his music, and I think that approach to it, and the kind of variety that he brought to several of his compositions and everything like that. And as you mentioned, like these are all like some of these kritis that he sang were like, and I also have to bring this up again, like because I don't think that you mentioned about Bhavayami, but then this discussion will not be complete without mentioning about Endro Mahanubhav.
Yeah.
Right? So tell me about that, like what is his approach to that song? And it is something I have heard many. I personally have heard 2 or 3 different versions of him singing. Like each looked a little different, but
Yeah.
so yeah.
Shankar, he had immense regard to Tyagaraja Swami, right? On a personal side, I still remember the year he passed away, that Bahula Panchami that he was not able to sing at home, right? He was upset. He was actually upset that he was not able to render in front of. So that, his lineage is from, it goes back to Tyaga Brahmam, right? Tiger Vardacharya. So there is this very strong connection with, Tyagaraja Swami Kritis. And Endaro, as I said, because he learned Telugu. Again, I don't know how he managed to learn Telugu because, having, born in Kerala, coming to Chennai, and then, getting a passion towards that language. So Endaro had a very special place for him in his heart. Again, I really don't know what was the driving force behind it. But as you said, I have listened to like at least 5 or 6 different versions of Endaro Mahanubhavulu, right?
Because there's one concert where he took that as a main piece, and he sang some little Neraval, and I mean,
and
like,
then Swaram. Rama Bhakta Daina, he sings Swaram also in the end. Yeah.
Which is very, like it's not that, first of all, I mean, it's not whether it's necessary or not, but he felt that is a kind of greatness towards that song. And I've heard like other Vidwans talk greatly about like how he should be the one who's singing that song. And,
In fact, there is a AR recording of a group rendition of Endaro Mahanubhavulu. In fact, your esteemed guru is also in that rendition, right? So that Endaro Mahanubhavulu group rendition is also not as fast as how it is typically done, right? It has that slightly lower than Madhyama Kala. So I think the way he split the Sahityams, everything was part of it, right? So
turning to Sahityams, I think that's a very important part of it. Like for him, the music is incomplete without understanding the Sahityam. So he used to split a lot of these, take Navagraha Kritis or any Dikshatar Kritis or Tyagaraja Kritis. So he was very careful about not to do the Padachedam and, maintain the purity, right? Like, and that also comes from the understanding of different languages that you mentioned, right?
నిజదాసులైన వారు రామ భక్తుడైన శ్రీరామ భక్తుడైన శ్రీరామ భక్తుడైన సాధులైన వారు రామ భక్తుడైన
understanding the languages, and he was an amazing storyteller, right? I have, again, as I said, and this is something that others have also shared with me. If you travel to a temple with Appa, right, he used to know the background of the temple, the history behind it, right? So everything is all, it is all interconnected, right? So that respect to the art, and also the context with which that kriti was created. So if he takes up a kriti to render, I am sure he knows the context, or he knows the meaning of that kriti, and what exactly the poet is trying to convey, right? That was his objective. And of course, this is how the great Tiger Vardacharya also used to approach music. I've heard that when they are singing swarams for that Sabari Bhagyamu, right, in Mukhari, it seems he used to say that, Entanine, yeah, Entanine Sabari Bhagyamu. He used to say the swaram should be like how Shabari had tasted those fruits, and that is how the swaram should be there. So there was this, the whole journey of how he, learned music, or it was a very immersive experience for him. So I don't think it was all, that is why you can experience that as a listener when you see that, he's very sure about, words, and he's confident about adding few, upasargas or prasargas, he's adding that also, right? So he takes that Akila, Sakala, all those traditional,
Sakala Loka Jananina, like that. Yeah.
Nikila, he will add those prefixes, right? He will add those prefixes because he is actually, he defined the space, and he is very clear about the Sahityam. So it is all part of it, right? And I'm so like to see that, to see that journey that he has taken, and the way he has presented his art form. I am able to see how many Rasikas have evolved, and how much that music has gone to those Rasikas, right? The message that he wanted to convey has been received.
I think that this is, since you mentioned that, I have to stop and say that Rasikas, like, I know people who are very, very casual listeners and who are not deeply into Carnatic music, but then they take a pause and they listen to MDR, and they are fans, big fans of MDR. So I know people who are simultaneously big fans of, like, Ghulam Ali or Ilayaraja and other things, but then they don't listen to too much of Carnatic, but they will say, I like MDR's music. I like that, and I listen to that. I don't normally listen to Carnatic music, but I listen to that. So that is the kind of appeal, that he crossover appeal, I would say, right?
So a professor in TIFR in Mumbai, I met like almost 35 years ago, when I was first introduced, right? He was a big fan of my father's music. He said, I tell my, in my school, in my research institute, I say it's a one-way traffic. If you start enjoying Appa's music, and which I have personally seen, there are some die-hard Rasikas that listen to him and listen to him only. And, that loyal fan base, again, many of these people they are born after he passed away, right?
Yes, that is important. So they have known about this after, by listening to tapes, and and then fallen in love with this music. Yeah, and I think that kind of fan base is like, for certain people, their music grew after their like Ramanatha Paramkrishnan, to give one example, or Srimati Brindama and Muktama, and so music is something that grows on you, and a lot of people have taken into it. And like I also have to, like we have to talk a little bit about as a composer. But before that, I also wanted to say that he, like when he gets on the stage, a lot of time I have noticed, like from listening to his recordings and everything, like sometimes he gets into this really playful mode, and like and that gets reflected in its compositions and swarams, where he would do a lot of permutations, combinations, some little variations in lines and everything. Is that like kind of like a reflection of his personality in life too? Like in the sense, like he wants to experiment and
I think so, because again, having that scientific background, right? He had this experimentational, approach. He wanted to experiment his approach to music, no doubt, but again, without breaking the
yes, without
traditional
breaking the
norms,
thing, yes.
right?
Like I mean, like all the pallavis or anything, like there's a lot of like he's done like all traditional four kalai pallavis, like Vinavaya, Shankarabharanam, Tharaka Brahmaswarupini, all those elaborate pallavis and everything. But then there will be a lot of layam and intermixing of all those things in a very, very subtle way. It's not like that you are doing this, like you're doing this kanaka or you have to get into this landing. It's not like that. Nothing is, it just comes very naturally. And, so those are the things that,
It was more of an, again, there is a Pallavi that I've heard others mention, Ramani Samanam Evaru, he actually made it as a Pallavi, right? Then he also had Swaraksharams in few Pallavis, right?
absolutely.
In Mohanam, there is a Pallavi that he did, which has, Swaraksharams there, right? So I think he, again, I think I don't want to, I want to qualify that statement. He found beauty in, it has to come naturally. It has to flow seamlessly, right? Whether it is a ragam, tanam, pallavi, naraval, swaram, everything had to have, that, aesthetic beauty. And there is
Every note is aesthetic also, like whether they're flat notes or whether they're sharp notes, everything. Like, so I think for me, I think MDR used to sing a lot of. Flat notes, which are his specialty, like natai, or like you take that da, the Shatsuti Daivatam, that the third da, that was his specialty, the way how he used to handle that, and da and that ni after that Shatsuti Daivatam to that next Nishadam Varada, that part of it was very beautifully. He used to capture that with flat notes and everything while singing swarams and everything. That was also a unique way that he did that. So I mean, these are all like that shows his spirit. And about us as a composer, like how many compositions has he done?
He started composing from 1950 onwards. So the very first composition actually in his notebook dates back to 1950. So I would say close to around 250 to 300 compositions. And he has composed Varnams, then Tillanas, Kritis, and he actually wrote the Telugu Sahityam in Telugu, Sanskrit and Sanskrit, and Tamil and Tamil. Right. This is something that
kind of command in multiple language, and he was like from Malayalam, right? Like that's his background when he grew up.
Yeah, the initial academics must have happened in Malayalam because he grew up in Kerala, right? So, and at the same time, since he has written many articles in Hindu, Bhavans, Indian Express. He has written many articles, right? So his command over English is also pretty good. In fact, there is a IIT lecture which is available on YouTube. He has given a 3-hour lecture on music, right? So his command over English was also, fabulous. And then he has also composed just poems on his guru. He's actually composed something called Varada Bhakta Vijayam, right? Just on his guru, right? It's and then he has composed on Sundara Ramayanam. Okay, that is again his interpretation of Ramayanam, right? He has done that. Then he has also composed for dance drama at Kalakshetra for Buddhavataram. He has actually composed music for that also. So truly multifaceted.
Absolutely. So look at the range of things that he has started with, like from starting with so many beautiful varnams, right? Like rare ragams, like Ranjini, he's composed a varnam, right?
He has composed varnams in Ranjini. Actually, in fact, Ranjini, there is an interesting story that I've heard that he composed a varnam, kriti, and a tilana on the same day, right? That is how he was inspired by Ranjini, and then he actually composed all the three on the same day. That's what I heard. And similarly, of course, Bhagyashree is quite popular when he are singing. The Sagara Shayana Vibho.
It's almost like you can visualize the Sagara Shayana like as the Lord is in the ocean, right? So I think that was his vision to compose it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was
creation of something from.
He was going through his his documents, his journals, and everything.
I mean, he's somebody who didn't go into too much of like Hindustani bass at that time. Like he was a very, very, like traditional heavy ragas. And then he's composed these beautiful things like Bhagyashree.
Correct. He got inspired by hearing Bhagyashree in Calcutta. Apparently, he went for a conference in Calcutta where, Bhagyashree was rendered, and he was inspired by that actually, made him compose this, right? So that's the story behind Bhagyashree. And in fact, I have, as I said, earlier, the friends, family friends that we have, they're told that when he used to visit Bombay, a lot of Hindustani musicians used to come and meet him. Actually, I personally have a very fond recollection of, when I was introduced to Pandit Jasraj. Wow. He actually, he he looked at me and he held my shoulder, and I still remember he said, "Your father was a great man," you know. And for me at that age, I didn't know that Pandit Jasraj was such a legendary musician. I heard him sing one
Hear him say this way, it is like a huge thing.
Sindhu Bhairavi. I was studying at Krishnamurti Foundation of India. There, again, a lot of musicians used to come, and the KFI school, right?
Yes.
You've seen that right opposite our
Yes, it's
house.
right opposite your house. Yeah.
Correct. So there he performed, and for the first time, I'm hearing a Sindhu Bhairavi, which has a totally, that's my first exposure to Hindustani concert. And this happened almost 2 years after my father passed away, right? So when this person, I mean, I didn't know that Pandit Jasraj is, such a great musician then. But I still remember because of the Sindhu Bhairavi that he rendered that day. And later over the years, then, I realized. And similarly, Kumar Gandharva's son used to come.
Which song? Maname Ram.
Yeah, he's composed Maname Ramane in Sindhu Bhairavi, which actually, it gives entire story of Ramayana.
Entire Ramayana.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful song. Yeah.
And he again, you mentioned about, jovial, this thing on the stage, right? Adala, it used to come Tandai Shol Tattad, right? Tandai Shol Tattad. That is a composition. But then in one of the concerts, he says Tandai Shol Kattad. Now today times have changed. So Tandai Shol Kattad. Now you will not be able to.
He used to jovially sing like once there was this little monkey or something that comes to the stage, right? Like he used to say Kapishwara, and
Yeah. So Adala in the Madri, he will just spontaneous, he will have these variations there, right? Adhe mari many concerts, if Jayaraman Mama's Keeravani he'll Lalgudi Mama and Shivaraman or Shivaraman sir or Raghu sir are playing, then he used to say, Jayaramuni, Shivaramuni, Antaramuni, and the Madri, he will add those.
All those things. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, so going back to the languages, yeah, he was in fact, he has written letters in Sanskrit to some of his friends. They exchange letters in Sanskrit. So another command over, and he is, again, as I said, he has composed, and Ellatukum Mela, I want to add one more thing, Shankar. He actually wrote a letter of apology to the goddess of learning. Right? But that is more like, a letter of apology, because he has actually mentioned, you have created great poets like Kalidasa and Tyagaraja, and I am actually inspired by all this, and I'm creating all this. So if there is any mistake, please forgive me. Adu vandu very, very beautifully he has written. This was dated 1960s. That is when he has written apologies to the goddess of learning. Pote, he has written a letter. And the Madri, again, he believed in art for art's sake, and that for heart's sake, and that for God's sake. In the Mari phrases, again, it is like observe and absorb. I've heard, and similarly, art for art's sake, and that for God's sake. Adala vandu he practiced, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean those compositions have got to come out. I mean, we've been listening to a few of them. Like for example, like Tyagaraja Gurum was like the first time I heard Tyagaraja Gurum was Sri KV and Mama in one of the academy concerts, and then of course it is very popular. It is being done. We had it. A number of kids who performed it at the Cleveland Aradhana and things like that. So there are many good krutis that we are listening, but there are many more also that are there, right? So
yes, there are. Yeah, so there are actually close to there are compositions, but he doesn't have the notations for those compositions. Sahityam mattumda irukku in the notebook. So that is what we have. And he has generally not performed a lot of his compositions. In a concert, there used to be one or two, and not all concerts used to have his compositions. It actually started, more in the late part of his career is when he started bringing out his compositions. So, audio
he
we
would
have a
not
reference
sing
point.
he would just sing one or something in a concert. It's not like he would just go ahead and sing all his compositions, just flood his concert with just his compositions. That is not something that is. So yeah, it's probably takes a lot of effort to actually do that. And on the lighter side, like what is that like? Is that like, do you have any funny incidents that you want to share or anything that?
Again, as I said, he had a very good sense of humor.
Yeah.
Very simple, Shruti had this topic. I remember when, after he passed away, simple living, great thinking. That was very much true in his, I've always seen him, wear a white and white all the time. He'll be in that, wear a colored shirt and I have not seen him. So, and he used to be, as a father, he was very affectionate. He used to be very involved in my future. He used to have but again, TV, we didn't have a television at home. So the very first television, in fact, I remember he had a national program, Doordarshan recording. I went there for the recording, and it was Lalgudi Mama and Palakat Raghu who played for that concert. That was the only time I see him wear a black jibba, because black and white.
The television wants to, yeah.
So
black and white part of this thing, yeah. So they want contrast.
They want contrast. And first time I not only see him, and then on the recording we had to go to the neighbor's house.
Yeah.
So adukappuram on the recording we had to go to and I used to find it very funny, because on the Hindi announce pannamoche, they will kind of struggle to say Devesha Bhagavathar and all. Adu unique ah irukum kekkuradhukku. So adamari few things. And then finally we managed to get a television at home. He used to say, he used to say. But on a lighter note, he enjoyed, he was a big fan of Shivaji. He used to like Shivaji Ganeshan's acting.
Yeah.
And I have seen him openly, have seen him openly cry for that Kappaloti Tamilan
Beautiful, yeah.
I watched with him. I still remember seeing him cry for that movie, right? Adhe Madri, I remember that Kathadi Ramamurthy or drama on the Ayya Mama no drama on he just laughed his heart out. And the memory
hilarious the movie Pati Patni
hilarious.
Then it was Ayya.
So then Adhe Madri, I remember he also going to Shankarabaranam.
Shankarabaranam. Yes.
So we went for a night show. And this is someone we went with who both of us know, our school principal, right? And both Appa and I, we slept. We didn't see we actually slept through the movie because the night show and So Anala, he used to, I've heard that he even liked Abhiman as a movie. Appa students, they have told him, Appa yarklan kalyanam aayirukko, go watch Abhiman and come. It is a nice movie. It
is a beautiful movie. At that time,
So adanala, very, very lively and, very, a lot of, he used to connect with, even though, he was a musician and all that, but ella team there used to be some kind of a connection with him, In friends, he used to talk with them, he used to have nicknames for them, he used to have some nicknames, interesting nicknames.
It's a lot of things. Like we can't cover all of that about his music in this short period. So Balaji, tell me about, if you don't mind, if you can share something about your mother's role in your Sri MDR's music journey.
Sure. Amma was, I would say, the backbone of Appa. in a complete sense, because Appa for his creative mindset, and he wanted that ambience, as I mentioned earlier, at home, Leah. Adukku vandu Amma was someone who actually gave that stability and emotional that pillar of support that was needed right from the beginning till the end. So Amma
difficult years, and and also to handle all that fame and the whatever that comes with that, like with all the great advance coming in and disciples coming in, and
Amma, we used to have frequent visitors at home, and adukku mela I've never seen Amma complain or anything. So Amma has been a big pillar of support. Appa the full like it's almost like she knew what he would want, and she would anticipate. Andalawukku, she was very, very attached to Appa, and that was one of the main reasons why he was able to continue his music and flourish as a
also
performing artist.
preserving a lot of his memoirs and everything, and
everything exactly.
Talking about this project that this exhibition that you had like last December, like Srimati Savita was telling that your family was very, they had everything in place, so it was such an easy job to put together this, because everything was archived so well, and I think that part also goes well to Mami also to
Absolutely. And anything pertaining to Appa, she used to meticulously preserve, and the entire credit goes to Amma, and making sure that everything is preserved and protected. So definitely, without any doubt, Amma's role in his legacy is extremely priceless. So
thank you.
Thank you, Shankar.
But going forward, what do you think like his legacy should be, and what is that now that centenary is happening, a lot of things are going on. So what do you think should be?
So again, Shankar, in the last 30 plus years, there are so many things that have emerged. Like there are at least 3 or 4 documentaries that have been released, two books that have been published. And there is also a memorial that was built in Kerala, in his birthplace. It was a memorial that was built after him. And this year, or last December, there was an exhibition in Chennai.
It was a very beautifully done, exhibit.
And there is Mr. Krishnamurti from Tirupunatara, who has been arranging his memorial concerts for the last 20 plus years. Krishnamurti Anna is someone, again, it's almost like, if on the 3 initials Ketachana, he will be there. It doesn't matter, how far it is. அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு loyal fan base there are very dedicated fans that are for him. So adnala, with all their support and Ava, they've been continuing his legacy, celebrating his music. He has uploaded close to around, I would say, 150 plus concerts / tributes from so many musicians, so many Rasikas, so many fans of Appa in his YouTube channel, right? Digitally, Appa is very, very active and vibrant. And அது ஒரு பக்கம் point இருக்கு.
Then all of that, like his one part of it is like, yes, like recognizing his greatness and doing anything, but also I really feel that as students of music, as people who are singing, that what they have to take is that spirit also and incorporate that in their music moving forward. Like that is also really important. Like what did he try to convey, and his approach towards music, and his approach towards voice culture and those kinds of things. I think that is
true, very true, and
people to learn from that.
Adhik, I think there are very, I'm again thankful. I take this opportunity to thank many ambassadors like, Sri Rama Verma, who doesn't, when he gets an opportunity, he always, brings out, Appa's. So both in his music as well as in his talks or as in his teachings, he's, sharing that with his students. And the madri other end irukku. So again, as I said, Appa is like, there is so much of content that he has left, right? It's time. It's taking time for others to process it and all that. So again, we are working on bringing out his compositions. I just want to make sure it is coming through the right medium. So Adalam and efforts are underway for that. So
And I think it's really wonderful to hear you to, like the mark that he has left on you, because you're so passionate about doing all these things, and you're as a Rasika, not just as a son alone, but also as a Rasika to it is. I can see that passion that you're speaking when you're talking about all his music and everything like that, because that is something that you believe in, that like you truly want to do that. So I can see that. And so I think so that way, I think, we are in safe hands, like that you being in the forefront of all this, that you will be definitely be in a great position to advance all these things.
It's a huge responsibility, Shankar. And again, I have, in the last 30 plus years, I have seen, I'm in the pivotal point where I interact with all these Rasikas, right? So I can see how they experience and receive his music. The magnitude and depth of his personality, it's so much to,
I'm sure that there are students and on a more academic level who would like to do some research and learn more about his music, his compositions, a lot of things to research about. And as practitioners, as people who are performing artists, they also have a lot to take from all these things.
Yeah.
Put it in their music. And I think the time ponade theriyala. I think that we've been talking for, and there is a lot to do, and but it was really wonderful. Thank you so much, Balaji, I think, for coming here and sharing all these memories and everything. And it is really something that we are very fortunate to have lived in an era where he lived, and fortunate to listen to his music also.
Thank you, Shankar. And again, it was definitely a privilege. And for me personally, talking about Appa is actually a very, it's not only a pleasant but difficult personally, because and I still, it's an ongoing process for me to even think that, okay, இவ்ளோ பெரிய ஒரு ஆத்மாக்கு பக்கத்துல நம்ம இருந்திருக்கோம் நினைச்சு பார்க்கறதே, it is, it's still, it's something that I cannot.
Probably hasn't sunk in to you at all. Like
it is not. I don't know.
There are more things that you keep discovering about his music, about his life, that over the period of time.
Especially as as I grow older, right? I can realize that the amount of I'm still, it baffles me, as I said, the amount of the achievement that he has done in his life, in his lifetime, and also yet being so selfless and having that passion and conviction to something that he believed in. It is something that it's going to be an inspiration for not only me, for I'm sure for many Rasikas, many people out there. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Balaji, and
thank you, Shankar, for this opportunity. Yeah.
And to speak for. And we always have his blessings. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
साकेतं पुरुषमोर जनकसुता सहितयागं साकेतं विलसित पटाभिषेकं पट्टाभिषेकं विलसित पट्टाभिषेकं विलसित पट्टाभिषेकं विश्वपालं श्रीपद्मनाभं विलसित पट्टाभिषेकं अखिल विश्वपालं सकल विश्वपालं निखिल